Hello, I'm James, and I'm an old guy in Europe. Hello and welcome to another episode of An Old Guy in Europe. In this episode, in my featured guest spot on Carl Munson's Good Morning Portugal Show, I share my most recent visit to Espinho, Portugal in October of 2024, and the what and why for it, and of course a few other things. So, as always, please sit back, relax, and enjoy.
It's no good me just sat here talking to him. Might as well bring him onto the screen, but we can't do that, of course. And you lurkers, any lurkers this morning who haven't said hello, please say hello. We can't bring James on, of course, until we've heard his music. So here it is. Woo! Oh, there he is. Do you scat along to that?
Here I am.
You really very nearly got some new music this morning. This might have been, well, this could be your new music. Let's see what you think of it, James. Wow. Ooh.
Hey, baby.
Oh, yeah, go. Mama. Oh, yeah.
Baby.
I wanted that next to you. Oh, yeah. Disgusting. Just absolutely disgusting. James, how are you?
I'm really mellowed out right now.
Get a bucket of water, please, for James. Get a cold water on that, man. But, yeah.
Very, very whitish.
Evocative, I think is it safe to say.
Yes, evocative. It evokes lots.
The problem with that is that those little sound effects of my voice have been taken from a real estate video. So I don't know what that says.
That's disturbing.
And you are a psychotherapist, so it's officially disturbing. The new ringtone, which is available from the Gumper store, thanks to Gary Austin. Good work there, sir. Thank you very much. I do like a little bit of 1970s radiophonic workshop. Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. I'll see if Mrs. M wants that on her phone. I'll get back to you. James, how are you? You've been to Espinho. That's why today's show is Yo Espinho. Are you now part of the Espinho Massive?
I'm working my way into that. Yes.
Ooh, okay, so it's heading in the right direction.
Yes. Yeah. And it didn't even occur to me that Vitor would be on the show today because I spent a day with him on what was it, Friday? You know, looking at a couple of properties in Espinho. So that was quite fun. It was the first time he and I had met face to face. So that was very nice, and shared some lunch and lots of stories. And yeah, so it was a good few days.
Yeah, he's a great bloke. I got a reminder that he'd stayed with us a couple of years ago, I think, maybe even 3 years ago now. And we must do that again. But he's great company, isn't he?
Yeah. I think between the two of us, we gave each other some great company.
So tell us then, how's this? To give us the backstory for those who don't know, you're thinking of moving from beautiful Ericeira, the California of Portugal.
Well, in truth, I spent about a year thinking about it and doing what I do, breaking it down like the same. It was the same process as coming to Portugal. You know, I spent a year of just kind of exploring what options there were and what's on the map and what's suitable for what I want. And, you know, do I really want to leave where I'm at? And, you know, all those same questions, only it's local. Yeah. So it took me about a year to make the decision. And the decision was, I'm going to make this move to Espinho, give that a shot. Mm-hmm. And part of that is that my idea coming over was that I would be in a position for the first time in my life to live exactly the way I wanted to live, which was, in terms of location and cost and the vibe and all the pieces that come together going, yeah, this is the life I want to be living. That's what I was up to when I was in the process of ultimately making the decision to come to Portugal.
Mm-hmm.
So again, very similar process now is I came to Portugal with the idea that I would be walking to the beach every morning and taking a walk and having a coffee, looking at the ocean, and living in a really nice place that was easily accessible to the beach, that kind of thing. And while my life has been absolutely fantastic, marvelous in Portugal since I've been here, and Ericeira was the landing place for me, I said, this is where I want to do that. After 3 years of living, at 4.5 kilometers from the beach, all pretty much all downhill, and then so it's all uphill back. A walk to the beach is 40 minutes. It's not a little, not just around the corner kind of a thing.
Sort of saunter. It's not
yes.
Yeah, okay, I get it.
I'm committed to, an hour, hour and a half of walking if I want to walk to the beach and home again, So it's like, well, that's not fitting. So then it was a decision of, well, do I want to move somewhere in Ericeira, close to the beach in Ericeira? And what I realized is that a part of that dream for me was getting out and walking every day, which I have not been doing because at my core, I'm lazy. So
that's very honest.
It's like, I'll go walk. I love to walk, but I don't want to just, work up a sweat every time I go walk out my front door. So I needed to balance that. And I said, well, even if I move to everything I want in Ericeira, again, it's pretty much you're on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, and then it's immediately uphill as you head inland, which is where people live. So I'm looking at a mountain climb every time I want to go home, even if I'm within 5 minutes of the beach. And I said, well, tough life, talk about a privileged position. Oh, I don't want to walk that hard. It's like, okay, get over it, James. But I'm looking, I came with this idea, this perfect idea. And I don't think that's unusual for many people. And, our dreams often get adjusted as we figure out what's real where we are. And coming to terms with ourselves. And for me, it's like, oh, yep, I didn't want to admit this, but I'm too lazy to walk up those hills every day. It's like, I'm too lazy to do that. Oh, you don't want to be lazy? Okay, I may not want to be, but then I have to change something in myself about that. And I don't seem to be willing to do that. So
I think this is very useful information for anyone thinking of moving to Portugal, isn't it? In terms of location, these are the big questions, aren't they? City life, country life, beach, not beach, river beach, Atlantic frontage, and so on. But that location thing, and being in the thick of things is quite a big decision and a key decision, isn't it? That, people who live in Lisbon and Porto, for example, who want to come out of their apartment and be there in the buzz of things. People love that and want to move for that. And that's a very specific thing to bear in mind and to organize for yourself. And it sounds like you had a similar sort of dream of being in a particular place, visualizing that. And where you first ended up isn't exactly that, is it? There's a kind of psychological barrier in the way.
Yeah. And again, I've talked about my frustrations with my driver's license exchange and all of that. And that I believe that slowed me down in terms of my exploration of Portugal, because again, part of this dream was, oh, I'll rent a car and I'll drive places and I'll see lots of places and I'll explore. And it hasn't been that, because I haven't been able to drive legally, and that's the key thing. So I just drive with your license you have. No, I don't want to do that. I want to drive legally. So that constrained me to whatever I could access via public transportation, which isn't really, it's not all that limiting, but it is more limiting than being able to drive wherever you want. So I think, as most people know, Connie and Hank are friends of mine, and they live up in Vila Nova de Gaia. So I took the train from Lisboa up to Porto to see them at one point. And it's on that train as the train goes through Aveiro and then it heads north, it's very close to the ocean. And so as it goes through Esmerish, then to Espinho, then Granja, then Miramar, it's all just right along the ocean. I mean, you can literally, if you're on the west side of the train, look out the window and see the ocean every time you go by a street.
Why do we never see that in any tourism videos? I guess we're sport for choice, aren't we? But that sounds like a fantastic journey.
Yeah, and it's a very short section of the entire ride. Most of the ride is, farmland and open space and all of that. And then we go through the various cities along the way, including Coimbra and Aveiro. So you get to see those places from the train. But for me, there was something in the architecture and the location that just got my attention as I passed through Espinho and then Granja and then Miramar. The architecture was more Victorian. It was like nothing I had seen so far in Portugal, which is mostly the poured concrete, very rectangular, square, white buildings.
The sugar cubes.
Yes, and this was like facades and fancy carving and sort of, I don't know what you call them, like more like towers on the outside of. And I said, wow, that's a very unusual architecture from what I've seen so far. And it caught my eye. So at that point, I said, well, at some point, I'm going to have to come back and check this out, because from the train, I'm looking 3 blocks to the ocean, less than half a kilometer. I mean, just that close to the ocean from the train. So, well, there's something in that. So I did. I went back, and first I got on the maps and I looked at what was what and where's this city and where's the city relation to that. And Espinho popped up as the most likely landing spot along the way. So that's what got me to Espinho in the first place, is just to explore it. And as I did that, I found some very unique aspects of Espinho. I think it's fairly accurate, but I'm calling it the 20th century modern city. Right. Even though it looks, many of the buildings look very old and moldy, and like so many places in Portugal, they're not like shiny and brand new. But as I looked at some photos on some Espinho Facebook sites, some old photos and things, it really wasn't developed as a city until after 1900. So probably around 1920 or so is when they first started developing it into something more than just, it looked like it was, a place where I don't know whether it was fuel or gravel, but, sort of a one-stop train station for it to get some water and then move on. Industrial, very industrial, not very inhabited, and clearly fishing. So fishing, yes. The local residents there were either fishermen or it appeared to be physical laborers mostly. So it developed it very intentionally, and I say modern because Europe is so old. And so much of Portugal developed, one farmer at a time. I need a house, I need a farm, here we go. Yes, and then another one, and then another one. Oh, now we need a road to get there. So the road's like all over the place. And Espinho, incredibly unique. If you zoom in enough to see the city, you see a grid that's all rectangles. You have streets running north and south in a straight line, and streets running east and west in a straight line. So everything's perpendicular and parallel. And there's no street names. They're all numbers. So you don't even have to see the map. And if you are familiar, if you hear Rua 4 e 20, 21, you're in the northwest corner of the city.
Yes. And there must have been a moment, or a son of Espinho, or daughter even, traveled abroad and came back and said, we should try this newfangled grid system, because it was perfect timing to do that, right? The development was in line with somebody bringing an idea back from somewhere else, I suspect.
Yeah. I'm fairly certain of it. And I know that Lisboa changed after the earthquake some of its formerly very curved roads and things got straightened out and organized in the rebuild after the great earthquake, as I've been told historically. So it makes sense. So there was that. I mean, that is just makes one unique aspect of it. But for me, the primary thing when it comes to my walking every day is it's flat. I mean, it is flat, and it goes uphill maybe 2 meters every half a kilometer. I mean, it's a very, very gradual incline as you head east away from the ocean, which doesn't bother me.
Well, you could still have roller skates or a skateboard. That could be a very nice little ride home.
Yeah, yeah. And I also have a bicycle, which makes it easier to do. And what ended up happening, long story, a little bit shorter, is every time I said, "Oh yeah, Spino looks pretty good," and then my heart would go, "Oh, but Ericeira." It's like,
yes, don't cry.
Like, so I've got the checklist. Spino, check. Okay, check. Pragmatic. Yeah. Okay, yeah. Transportation. The train station is in the center of the city, and it's about a 5-minute block to anything. I mean, a 5-minute walk to just about anywhere. So rather than where I am now, I have lots of public transportation to Lisboa. So it's not a function of access, but it's a function of time. It takes an hour and a half for me to get from where I live to Lisboa, which is where I have to go if I want to go anywhere in Portugal. Yes. So I'm committed to an hour and a half bus ride just to get to a train. And in Espinho, it's a 5-minute walk to the train.
Yes.
So that's a huge difference that I hadn't considered in all these things you consider when you make a move from one country to another. I checked public transportation. Yep, they got lots of buses that go in and out of Ericeira to Lisboa. That's great. That hooks me up. But then the reality is, I need to go to a public hospital. Where's the nearest one? Lisboa. So that's an hour and a half on the bus to get to the hospital if I want to go for an exam or whatever.
Yeah,
those kinds of things you don't consider when you're looking at the whole picture, what I call living a life there as opposed to living a dream. You live the dream in your mind, you live the life when you get there and put your feet on the ground.
Yep.
And Espinho was doing the living the life check boxes, like boom, 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 public hospital, flat, exercise, beach. Cost of living was even a little bit less than Ericeira, although anything along the coast is going to be more. But that wasn't really, has never been a major factor in my decision about being in Portugal. It's been a really nice plus for me, but I've said over and over, if you're moving to save money, you're not going to be happy. I mean, unless money is the only thing that's important to you and you're saving money, it's like, okay, well, then you might be happy. But if you're not moving for culture and language and history and as my referral, the vibe, then you're wasting your time. You're going to want to leave. Cost of living is the least. I mean, I understand it's important, but it's not the most important thing. And if that's your thing, I'm convinced you're just not going to be happy. So, so Spino showed up, and I went back to see it again. I've been there now 4 times, and up until this time, each time was progressively longer. And of course, I've had Hank, who I've said he's a great source of encouragement, and he's a very passionate guy, and he'll talk about so what about and he'll ask Portuguese people this. So what about Portugal is it that you love that's not Porto? That's his attitude.
Wondering why you haven't got with it. Come on, what's keeping you? Get up to those Espinho.
That's right. So he's been like that with me. As soon as I mentioned the possibility that Espinho's looking interesting, he's like, okay, so when can I write you down for moving? That kind of thing. So I finally made that decision. It took me a year to get to that place, and then over the last several months, I've made a couple visits, and now I've connected with and made the decision that I'm making that move. That happened, I think, last May. So then it's like, again, Hank's like, okay, so what day? Well, are you coming next month? This week? And it's like, this is the first time in my life, and this is very unique as well, and maybe a position that many people who have immigrated have, especially from Europe and the US, is I can choose what I want.
Yes.
It's not gonna be limited by cost. It's not going to be limited by location. It's not limited. It's not even limited by time. I mean, Louisa loves having me here. We're family. So she'd rather I didn't leave. So I can be here where I am.
Yeah, that must be quite the what's the word I'm looking for? The pull, that's quite a dynamic in this, isn't it, in this mix?
Yeah. And that's the other thing to consider. If you're thinking, oh, I'll land here and then start exploring, just pay attention or be aware that you're going to be developing relationships while you're in the place you're in. And, my landlord or landlady or land family, whatever you want to call it, has become family. I mean, I have meals with them on a regular basis in their kitchen. We drive to and from Ericeira to go to the grocery store. Louisa comes and stands on my doorstep and talks to me for an hour or whatever, almost every day. So, this decision to leave, it's like, it's not just the place, Ericeira, it's the life that I've created in the time that I've been here that is changing. And that's another consideration, the emotional connections that you make when you end up in a place. And so it's been a very interesting process for me. And again, I still say it. It's kind of like Victoria used to say about Spain. It's like, okay, well, I guess Espino is going to be my wife, and Ericeira is going to be my lover.
Yes,
you'd be my mistress.
Back. Maybe Christmas.
My heart is here. It will never change. Ericeira is beautiful. And if it were flatter, I wouldn't even be leaving. I'd just be looking for a new place to live. I mean, and more convenient to in terms of transportation. Those are the two major things that said, that's just not working for you, James. And the beaches are very different. Espino is just long and flat and level.
The show slide today, thanks to the camera at Espino. That's the beach. That's the main beach, is it? The main bay of the town there.
Yeah, and that's just a very tiny section of. I mean, you have probably 20 kilometers of beach just stretched out north and south. Right, and the Espino, well, not just Espino, but that area has a dedicated pedestrian bicycle path.
Yes.
That literally you can take all the way up to Porto from, and that's a 30-minute train ride. So, I mean, that's a long distance to just walk on a boardwalk along the ocean, and then some of it comes inland. But so it's very different, but it's beautiful in its unique way versus beautiful in Ericeira's unique way.
Yes, well, Antonio's here. Bit of Tony Tone, man in the Minho approves. Bom dia, alegria, feliz segunda-feira e excelente semana para frente. Tony Time, man in the Minho, adding also love Espino. Closed on 2 properties there recently, and both buyers, the California comparisons continue, said it reminded them of Orange County, California back in the 60s and 70s. There is that.
I could see that. Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, and people roller skating and cycling and doing bodybuilding on the beachfront there. That's not Orange County, is it? That's what Muscle Beach. But there is that Californian vibe, I would have thought, with that kind of frontage in the town there. And the grid, of course, as well. About which John says, I have to say, though, the higgledy-piggledy twisty village roads are integral to the charm of Portugal.
Absolutely.
US numbered grid system is something I like to avoid, not a criticism, just my preference. I think you're not moving there for that, are you?
No. I feel like I'm in a maze because every street looks exactly the same. It's like, where is that coffee shop?
Yeah,
I know it's here somewhere.
But as soon as you've got the system understood, it'll be on the corner of 75th and Vine or whatever.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
It's a lot of association by landmarks and by intersections.
Yeah. Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so the man himself is going to join us in a couple of minutes. Vitor Costa. He's got a vineyard for sale, I believe. He's very good at finding vineyards and wine producers who would like to sell their property to you and their operation. That's a beauty that he recently advertised on Facebook.
I'd
And of course,
love to share, if I can do it briefly, an anecdote of my train ride in.
Well, let's do that before he joins us. Yeah, absolutely. But Antonio says here, look, James, you will do great by living in Espina. So you got the Tony Time endorsement this morning.
Yes, and I anticipate my Portuguese language learning will increase. The speed will increase too, because there's a lot less English being spoken in Espinho than in Ericeira. So I'm looking
Now, what
forward.
is it with you and trains then? Because before you were stuck behind a troop of Cub Scouts, I think, on one journey.
Yeah, that was one journey. Being the hero on the escalator was another one. There's something about me in train stations.
Yes.
But this one had to be it was just on the train. I don't know how, but at some point I became aware that I wasn't hearing any Portuguese, and it was all American English I was hearing everywhere, every seat. It's like the entire car was filled with Americans. That was new and unique for me. And I was like, yeah. As I tuned in, yes. So everyone's speaking English, American English. So that was kind of surprising. What I observed about myself was that a reminder that we're all judgmental, which started with me. It's like, ooh, okay, you're really being judgmental here, because I'm almost positive they were all tourists, just there for a brief time. But I'm having these attitudes like they're not even trying to speak Portuguese. They don't even say obrigado and bom dia. They're just going, hey, can you help me with this, to the guy who's checking tickets, that kind of thing. That's all my judgments on it. And I reflect back on me. That informs me how I behave within the culture. So, okay, so that's part of my inspiration, is I don't want to be that. But
God forbid.
That's right. So the thing mostly that was fun for me is everyone's sitting back, relaxing, talking to each other, and the announcement comes on every time there's a news. You're arriving at another station. And I heard the announcement for Espinho. So I said, I heard the one for Esmerish. So I knew the next one was going to be Espinho. So I'm sitting there. When I hear the announcement, I'll get up and get my luggage and get ready so I can be ready to get off the train when we pull in. And the announcement, the announcement hadn't happened yet. So all of a sudden, all these people in this train car started standing up, grabbing their luggage off the racks, putting it in the aisle, and then all getting ready to get off the train. And I'm thinking, why are all these Americans going to Espinho? I mean, it's a lovely place, but an entire car full of Americans is getting off. Do they have some kind of special tour or something going on there? And I just could not figure it out. And of course, by the time the announcement came and it's time for me to get my luggage, everyone's just standing in the aisle with their giant suitcases and we're getting ready to get off. And I'm like, so I'm feeling a little crowded. I get in. How am I going to get to the doorway? They're all just standing here in the aisle. And of course, I'm still in I don't know how to say this in Portuguese. I could have just said, hey, get out of the way. They all went, oh, okay. So that was going on. And then as I'm moving, as they seemed to perceive that I knew what I was doing.
Yes.
Because I started getting the question, is this Porto?
Oh, okay.
And I said, no, Espinho. And they're going,
sit down.
What's a Espinho? What is an Espinho? What is Espinho? What is that? And I said, Porto, another 30 minutes. So I'm doing that. And there was, it felt good to be able to help people who were confused.
Yeah.
The judgment in me, oh, you stupid idiot, why don't you know where you are? It's like,
Yes.
so that's going on. Well, oh, I remember being confused and not knowing where I am, and I can help them out. Interesting little overlay between those two positions. So
when you realized they needed you, that changed your attitude, I think, didn't it?
yeah. And I got asked, like, as I'm passing each American after the other very slowly, each one is saying, are we in Porto? Or Porto? Am I supposed to, are we, just confusion. I said, no. I said, this is Espinho. Always confused when I said Espinho. And then I said, Porto's another 30 minutes. And now but none of them sat back down. So I think they stood on that train for the next 30 minutes waiting to get to Porto.
Stop. They didn't want to miss that stop. No. I'm very excited, obviously, to be in Porto, which you could have guessed, right? That's the big tourist ticket.
Yeah. That would have, if we had been pulling into Porto and that had happened, it's like that would have made total sense to me. But I was confused because we're pulling into Espinho and all these people are getting ready to get off the train.
They might have been poker players.
Yeah, to the casino. That's it. The big draw of the casino.
Which you haven't mentioned yet.